Hey guys, it's Camille from Chicken Scratch and Sniff. Today we're going to talk about Alma's chapter 36 to 38. And these are chapters where Alma's talking to his sons. And it's a great example for us because whenever we feel like the world is crazy, what difference can we make? How can we help? Feeling overwhelmed, but like we want to do something, right? We can take a cue from Alma and turn to teaching our families and making sure that they understand the things that are most important and that they are living their righteous lives and being good influences as well. And so in chapters 36 through 37, Alma is teaching Helaman, and then in chapter 38, he teaches Shiblon, okay? So Helaman, he's a cool guy. He didn't go on the mission to the Zoramites. He stayed home in Zarahemla and kind of watched some things over there. But he is one of the guys, so this is the figure of Helaman. He ends up being the leader of the 2,000 stripling warriors. When he finds out that the people of Ammon are going to break their oath because they want to join the fight and support their Nephite brethren, he reminds them how their sons haven't made that covenant and they should fight instead. And so they elect him to be their leader. And so he does some really cool things there, but then he's also the grandpa to Nephi and Lehi. And they are definitely two cool people too. So really cool thing, and it's great to make that connection of who he is so that your family can really appreciate Helaman. And then Shiblon, we don't know too much about him, but I'll give you some clues into him in a minute. So what does Alma teach Helaman? And it's interesting because if you know who Helaman is, it's interesting to see what he teaches Helaman, okay? So first he says, remember the captivity of our fathers. Alma is always reminding people about the captivity of their fathers and how the only way they could be delivered is through God. And so he reminds them of that. And if you think about how he has to be this military leader, it's interesting to also have that spiritual connection of bondage, right? And then he reminds him to trust in God and you'll be supported in your trials. So definitely something that Helaman's going to need to remember later on. And then Alma says, I know that you can trust in God and I know he will support you in your trials because I know for myself. And he shares his conversion story. And I love his stories. And you can there's some charts that I shared with you from BYU Studies, you know, that Charting the Book of Mormon book that I love so much. And so there's a few chapters in there. Okay, so, and they share, you can look at all three of his conversion stories a little bit all together and see what's different and what's the same and what's the overall tone of those things, and kind of gives you some additional insights. But one of the things Alma shares as he's sharing it to Helaman is his 3 days of extreme pain and anguish, and he really drills that home how painful that experience was when he was after the angel came and visited him. But then he remembers Jesus Christ and he turns to him for mercy. And Jesus Christ delivers him, and he then does it. Well, here, let me quote it. It says, I could remember my pains no more. And then he talks about the joy that he feels. And we've talked about that before, about how because of the joy, all that pain is swallowed up, and it's just not relevant anymore. And then he, okay, so some of the other things in his testimony that's interesting in Alma's testimony is he quotes Lehi for a little bit in verse 22, and then he mentions how others have tasted as I have tasted, which kind of referenced the tree of life, remember? And so it's kind of fun to see those references in there because, you know, we always quote some scriptures and make them part of our testimony as well, like small and simple things, and we end up doing that too, so it's fun to see how Alma does that as well. And then again, he reminds Helaman how God can give a deliverance. And then he shares how he knows these things because he was born of God, and he wouldn't have been able to know these things if he wasn't born of God. And so you can do my cone activity that we did back in April, but if you still have those, you can bring them out, or you can do it again and you can print them out. And there's a topper on the cone that you kind of represents the natural man, and then you take it off, so it's like shedding that old man and being born again into this new person who is now born of God. Okay, so you could do that activity, which is fun. It kind of helps you break free, right? And then in chapter 37, he gives Helaman the records, and he talks about how they are being preserved for a wise purpose, and how Helaman even thinks that Alma is being foolish, that it's foolishness in me, a little bit of his natural man side there. but how it's through small and simple things that great things come to pass. And so, we love that scripture, right? I love that scripture. The reminder of how the small things that I manage to do matter and make a difference, right? And I shared some additional articles and things that you could study about small and simple things because I love that topic so much. And it's such a good reminder to all of us because small and simple things are possible, right? Okay, so here's a few activities you could do on that. Here's the thing. One of the things that he tells about the scriptures is that they lead the way to Christ, right? And so I wrote that here, and you could kind of see how everything kind of goes to this scriptures light the way in Christ. So you could color this page, but then you put the silhouette of Christ behind the page, and you put it up on your window. And so when you shine it, let's see if I can do this. I don't have a light behind me, but when you shine it up on a light, the silhouette shines through. And so you can see how Christ is leading, it leads the way to Christ, okay? And so you can put these in your window, and then you can kind of go on treasure hunts, scavenger hunts, to go and find other people's in their windows. So like if you have a primary class, they can all put them in their windows, and you guys can all go and look for each other's pictures. So that's kind of a fun activity. But then it just reminds us of how important the scriptures are. And maybe you can take, how there's those blank pages in your scriptures. You can take a moment and just write down your testimony of the scriptures again in your scriptures and have that reminder for yourself too. Okay, and then, for the small and simple things, there's a fun drawing activity. You remember how, can you see it? There we go. The S, remember? It's like, oh, that's so cool. I want to learn how to draw that, right? And it just starts with 6 little lines. I show you on a picture on a blog, and then it turns into this great thing. And since it's an S, you could write small, and then you could do another S and do simple. So small and simple things. But then I also show you how to do this swan out of a 2. And then there's a link to a video where you can do it with a whole bunch of different numbers. So it's just a fun little drawing activity that helps you remind you that small things make a difference and can make something great and beautiful. Also, though, there's the flip side of that, where small and simple negative things can also have a great negative impact, right? But people don't just start with one big sin. It's usually the small things that lead up to the bigger things, right? And so we have to be aware of that. And yes, that small thing there does make a difference in your life. And so you remember that Mormon ad where it's this picture of a sundae, ice cream sundae, and there's this cricket or grasshopper in the middle of it, and it's like, oh, it's no big deal, right? But it does matter. I'm not going to eat that ice cream. And so you can kind of do that with your kids. I shared a link to where you can buy grasshoppers to eat on Amazon if you wanted to. And so you could put those edible ones in your ice cream sundaes for your family. And then you can be like, oh, wait, watch out for the grasshopper. Or if you don't want to buy actual grasshoppers, you can do the cookies, but you could still say it that way because they're called grasshopper cookies. They're just mint. They're like Thin Mints, but they're by Keebler. And you could put those in the ice cream instead, and they won't know what to expect, right? But it's just a great visual of a reminder of how those small things do matter, good or bad, right? And then chapter 38 is Shiblon. Okay, so it's a short chapter. He went on a mission with his dad to the Zoramites. He's being praised for his good work and his patience in his tribulations. But he's also being reminded to bridle his passions. So if you print out the key events sheet, I have a diagram of the bridle and the different parts on it, and that you can kind of discuss as well this week, and what bridle your passions means, and how it doesn't mean bury them and forget them, but it means control them, right? And Alma reminds Shiblon there's only one way that we can be saved, and it's through Jesus Christ. And one of the interesting things about Shiblon is he does end up being a record keeper for a while. So after Helaman has them, he gives them to Shiblon, and then Shiblon, he wants to give them to Corianton, but Corianton is off on a boat somewhere else, and so he gives them to Helaman, the son of Helaman. To love how confusing that gets, but just a kind of cool thing about Shiblon, because he is faithful, continues to be faithful, and he leads a good life. So great thoughts for this week. I hope you guys enjoy it. I will see you again later. Bye.